There we go, YouTube. Got that notification about the Audible being live. It's the Audible presented by Sleeper, the best fantasy app that you'll ever need. And it's Thursday Night Football. It's Steelers and Browns. And Bloom, the Steelers are going to draw the wrath of the Browns. We're pissed after the way that last week's game went. So let's talk about the Steelers side and who the hell's going to be available.
Yeah, I think that we look at this game, Cease, and this is not necessarily the best advertisement for the NFL product, right? On a Thursday night.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
this might be one of those games. There's another one later on Sunday. Makes you think, what am I doing with my life if I'm sitting around watching this game? But this is a national TV game, so this is not going to be very good. This offense on television. See, here's the conversation about the Pittsburgh offense right now. Is it the play calling? Is it the offensive line? Is it the quarterback? It's all three. Well, why disagree? Why do we have to fight? It's everything.
Right,
It's all failing. It's all going terrible. You might fix one of those things. You're going to fix all three? I don't think so. Remember Myles Garrett? He's a little banged up with a neck issue. He likes to get after the Steelers quarterback, whoever it is. You're going to play Najee Harris, but I think this is just another game that's going to show you just what you have in Najee Harris. I mean, this is going to be like David Montgomery a few years back. Yes, you have the lead back. Yes, you have somebody who's going to get most of the work. It's going to be a rough ride. He's a running back. You're going to play Deontay Johnson, who still looks like one of the best receivers in the NFL. But he's a wide receiver 3 flex. Not a lot of upside there. And you're going to play Pat Freiermuth. Maybe that shows you how bad tight end is. That's the one guy Mitchell Trubisky can find consistently, looks for in the red zone. So Freiermuth is at least a tight end one. We'll watch Chase Claypool. For George Pickens, we just want a reason to hold on to him. Something. But
that's why you play Dynasty.
Right, exactly. This is really going to be a game.
I don't care if he does anything now.
Yeah, and this is gonna be a game, I think, that's just gonna show everyone just how miserable it is to be a Steelers fan right now. Watch this offense, but you are gonna see Cleveland secondary, who they're being pretty tight-lipped about the collapse. They have to respond emotionally. This team has to respond emotionally. But see, in these battles within a division, especially a physical division like the AFC North, I don't think there's anything that's gonna keep the Browns from getting into this game really quickly, because if you're not, you're going to get run over, at least by the Steelers defense. We know the defense can do some things.
Yeah, the defense can do some things there for sure. The Brown side of things is Nick Chubb, and more Nick Chubb. But now, is there anybody else going to step up against the Steelers? Draw plays, screen passes. Steelers win with defense, draw plays, screen passes. That's how they'll try to get it done. And why the hell did we switch sides?
Yeah, I think you dropped out for a second.
Oh, okay. Wow.
So this is going to be a rough game for the Steelers defense. We saw last week, yes, they were able to contain Mac Jones and company. We did see that big contested catch. Should have been an interception by Nelson Aguilar. Otherwise, there wasn't much going, and I don't think there's going to be much going, except that Jacoby Brissett is improving. So if there's a national TV showcase game here, it's only for Steelers fans like myself to be jealous of the Browns for making the better signing of the retread quarterback. Even though Nick Chubb didn't take a knee, it's not his fault. It's the secondary's fault. But I think like Nick Chubb needs motivation, right? Nick Chubb's going to be fine. Kareem Hunt could be a good play here. They're smartly running this offense through the backfield. Jacoby Brissett can support one fantasy play a week. In week 1, it was Donovan Peoples-Jones. In week 2, it was Amari Cooper. Let's put a chip on it being Amari Cooper again. He has to respond. He's not quite Brandon Bostic, but he's going to have to live with botching that onside kick, and hopefully this team turns things around, because if he had recovered that kick, or otherwise they had just finished that game, they would be 2-0, chance to go to 3-0. We're going to talk about the Bengals and what they have a chance to do this week, but the Browns would be feeling good knowing that things will even get better, at least at the quarterback position later on. We know there's talent there with David Njoku, but the production isn't there quite yet. So hopefully for Browns fans, this is a tonic, a chaser to get rid of the taste of that loss. If there's a good week for them to have a Thursday night game, especially against a team like the Steelers, this is the week.
This is not a great game. We do have a great game, couple of them coming up in this preview, but Houston and the Bears, Texans and Bears is up next, and it's not great. It's not great at all. So let's talk about the Houston side first. And well, Brandon Cooks so much, and now I guess they're not going to use Rex Burkhead. Okay, that's fine. It's not like I was relying on Rex Burkhead anyway. What's that say about Dameon Pierce? And what's that say about the Houston Texans as they roll into the Windy City?
Yeah. Oh boy. I'm sorry for Bears fans. Bears season ticket holders. They have to pay for this, Cease. They actually have to pay money for the privilege of watching this game. This is going to be bad. Maybe not for Damian Pierce. I mean, that's the thing, right? Damian Pierce, this game script should be favorable to get him going. And we'll see. The Bears gave it up to Aaron Jones last week. They were able to contain AJ Dillon on Sunday night, but Pierce is at least a what the heck flex, maybe even a running back too. You're going to see Davis Mills maybe to Brandon Cooks, probably sticking with him. We're not too worried about the Bears defense. Nico Collins, we're continuing to watch him to see if he at least gets on our what the heck flex radar, I guess, in this game. We saw Davis Mills pretty flummoxed by the Denver defense last week, not doing much in the passing game. The Bears defense is not exactly a pushover, but at the same time, uh, again, guys like Mills is a quarterback 2 super flex, Collins is a what the heck flex. I want to see it first. I want to see it. What this game might show us is if the Bears can win this, maybe the Bears are good enough to win the AFC South seas.
Yeah, the NFC South, AFC South is pretty bad, and the Bears on that side of things. Well, you mentioned David Montgomery. I'm like, can we just see more Khalil Herbert, please?
Mm-hmm.
Can that keep going? And a little bit more of Darnell Mooney. Like as the season goes on, and against Houston, they can do whatever they want. If they could do anything, Bloom, how would it happen?
Yeah, just running the ball. I mean, we could see on Sunday night that that's the side of the offense that is working, and you want to run to set up the pass. And the game script, it's funny, the game script didn't force them out of that into pass-heavy offensive approach against the Packers, and this game script's not going to do that for sure against the Texans. So I do think you're going to see Montgomery get in a groove. He's at least a what-the-heck flex. And we're going to see Herbert, like you said, Cecil, he still had one really good run, and he can maybe turn this into running back by committee, but not if Montgomery's running with urgency. Darnell Mooney's a what the heck flex, although really he's more like a keep him on your bench until he goes off. You certainly hope that this is something that this offense will figure out, because Mooney, I mean, even if you're just using Mooney to clear out and make room for Cole Kmet or somebody else in this pass offense, some sort of sign of a tactical approach to using Justin Fields as a passer, because you want to at least see him. See, what do we always talk about? Confidence. Where's the confidence going to be built if you're not even giving him chances to do things and make things happen? But again, this is hey, on the other side of it, this is your AFC South qualification, right? How do you? It's like the ride at the amusement park seats. Like, you must be this tall to ride this ride. You must be able to beat the Chicago Bears if you want to win the AFC South.
Yeah, we'll see where that what that happens on Sunday. Raiders in Tennessee is much more interesting than the last game. It's still not a good game, Bloom. It's still not a
Right.
fun
It's
game.
not very interesting, but it's much more
Right.
interesting than the last game.
Right. But you have to see how teams respond, right?
Yeah.
Because we talk about the confidence level with the Raiders, like, okay, they're doing some things right. Some things are working, some things aren't. With the Raiders and Josh McDaniels against the Titans, they'll have an opportunity for it to all work. And that includes your Hunter Renfrow shares, right? Because you're already starting Adams, you're already starting Waller. I don't know what you think of the backfield. Maybe they try something new there. But like, if you have an opportunity to get things right, to get on the winning track, if you're the Raiders, you're smiling to see Tennessee on the schedule.
Yeah, exactly. Here's gonna be a theme, Cease, this week and maybe every week. The AFC South sucks. Jacksonville. I know Eric Stoner told me, whoa, slow down. When I said Jacksonville can win this division, they're the only team that has a win, right? So that's a good qualification there. Loser goes to 0-3. So this is kind of like an elimination game, right? This is a losers bracket game.
Right.
Losers. With Vegas, I mean, again, how do they respond because of the collapse? Yet another team that emotionally let up during a game and let the other team win. That's what happened to the Titans in week 1, by the way, against the Giants. And did they fail to respond emotionally? I don't know. It's the Bills. I mean, they're facing the Bills in Buffalo on a Monday night with a rabid Buffalo Bills crowd. So I can't necessarily say they didn't respond. We saw Atlanta, by the way, as we're going to step through these teams that collapsed. Atlanta collapsed in week 1 against Jameis Winston and still almost got the win. Young Wei Koo, whose kick was blocked in the last seconds. And they almost got blown out, but then they responded in the second half. So we're not quite sure yet what the shark move is when we're projecting these teams coming back off of collapses. But look, the Titans don't have a Byron Murphy. Caleb Farley, I guess, could maybe do an impression as he's trying to make things happen as their first round pick last year. So it's probably a Devontae Adams game. Hunter Renfrow may or may not suffer a concussion, maybe on the last play, maybe on the play before that. He fumbled on both plays. So we'll see. That could actually make it more of a Darren Waller game. Not that you're deciding whether to start Darren Waller. Maybe we'd see more of Foster Moreau. Maybe Mac Hollins has 2 good games back to back. We know that the Titans defense, it looks like one that we can probably pick on here. And because of that, Josh Jacobs, you're going to expect a good game script for Josh Jacobs here. The Titans look like they're swirling down the drain right now. The Titans, here's your Titans analysis. How many of these contracts are expiring? Who can they move on from in the offseason? Because this franchise needs a reboot, and not the kind of reboot where you get rid of the coach and the GM. I think coach and the GM oversee this rebuild, but it's only week 3. You're looking forward to the rebuild.
Yeah, you're looking forward to it. And I got to send a note to your friend and mine, Teron Davenport, because I saw him do, I think it was after the Monday night thing, right, against Buffalo. And I saw Teron do a ESPN on-field report, and he just looked so sad. I was like, TD, I've been there, baby. I'm still kind of there with the Broncos. So there you go. It is the Broncos show. By the way, Foster Moreau, Zamir White, Mac Hollins, are they our sleepers of the week?
Ooh,
Make sure to stay tuned and find out. Tennessee side of things is Malik Willis the sleeper of the week. As I snort there, Bloom, like, might be time. And maybe in this division, Bloom, here's your hot take radio.
Yeah.
Maybe in this division, if you go to Malik Willis now and it works, maybe you don't need to rebuild.
Yeah. And that's the question, right? Because Taylor Lewin is probably out for the year. So, you know, losing another player. You already lost Harold Landry. I mean, arguably they lost their 2 best players. And notice I'm not talking about Derrick Henry. And that's another thing hovering over this. It's just there's no momentum here with Derrick Henry. You had 1 week to sell him where there was still some of that first round aura around him after week 1, because at least he got the workload. And I'm not saying, look, we're going to keep plugging Derrick Henry in our lineup. And I suppose that we were talking about this on the couch yesterday with John Daigle, Cease, where buy low, sell high. Those concepts don't work. Everyone's pretty tuned in. It's more like buy high, sell low. Maybe it's sell low on Derrick Henry. I don't know, but you get so low, then maybe it turns back to buy low. I talk myself in circles here because it just is so bleak. Now, granted, the Bills are probably going to make a lot of teams feel like their future is bleak. And we know it's Mike Vrabel, and we know this has been a team. See, how many times did they win games against the odds last year? So this is it, Titans. And hey, when you're talking about the Malik Willis math, one thing is, and again, it was Buffalo, but he looked so lost against Buffalo. That probably gives the team pause, because you don't want to put Malik Willis out there when he's lost, because that could really break him. That could be like a Humpty Dumpty situation where, sure, you want to see what you have for next year. Maybe you're going to be picking high and you want to know if you need to take a quarterback, but you also don't want to ruin your quarterback. And I think maybe by just how lost he looks, you can see why in the end, no team was willing to spend a first or second round pick on him. And it is the AFC South. So if you say no Malik Willis until they're out of playoff contention, well, geez, when's that going to happen? I mean, maybe all 3 teams are going to be in until week 17, as long as they can win like 3 or 4 games along the way. Derrick Henry's not the same. It's just not the same. And this is one where I'm going to say it's really, I think, analytics, metrics, people were looking at things like yards after contact, tackles broken, things like that. And that was in the data, even though his massive volume, John Daigle was talking about this yesterday, even though his massive volume is exactly what we want in fantasy football, and he was producing like the running back one, producing better than Jonathan Taylor before he went down. The metrics that showed his ability to add value to his touches were down, were trending down. So he looks discouraged. And Cease, I know this is like superstitious or putting too much on one play, but again, when you saw him get decleated in game 1, that's just not the Derrick Henry we know.
Yeah. And you could tell by the film. I understand how the data backs all that kind of stuff up.
Well, exactly.
That's nice, but the film has to back it up. And when you see him play, it's almost like seeing Superman have a weakness. You know what I mean? When you get decleated and you're Derrick Henry, what does that do for your confidence?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, Mike Tyson versus Buster Douglas or something like that, where you can just
Right.
see that it's not the same.
Right.
And I think with these surroundings, I don't know how he's going to regain it. I guess as Traylon Burks, that's the guy you try to get going. Robert Woods. I just think there's not anybody. We have to start Derrick Henry, but otherwise, I just think this is a really bleak picture for the Titans, and it's a shame because I think Mike Vrabel in the regular season got as much as you could get out of this team. And we even saw them in the playoffs. Remember the memorable upset of the Ravens. The team had a pretty nice run in the postseason, just happened to be at the same time that Patrick Mahomes was ascending. So it's kind of sad that I hate it's week 3 season. I hate to be like presiding over a funeral here, but I think for this team, a memorable team, a team that had their own personality and exerted it, and had Mike Vrabel, had Derrick Henry, even the resurgence of Ryan Tannehill, feels like it's overseas.
Nah, it feels like our guy Jason, pot stoner degenerate in the chat room. I love. I gotta go hang out with
Breakfast
Jason again,
pizza.
dude.
Yeah.
You need to get out to Denver so we can go up to Greeley and hang out with
Enlightenment.
Jason.
Yeah.
So he says $1 breakfast pizza slices that come and
Isn't
go.
that where
Code
Mike
red on
McDaniel's
sale
from
at
too?
Safeway.
Is Mike McDaniel from Greeley, right?
Yeah.
This is producing some
Cecil
good people
sporting
up
an
there.
anthrax hat. And what's next, Stigmata? There you go. What's next is Chiefs and Colts. This one, Bloom, could be entertaining because the Chiefs could just like 52-0.
Yeah.
That's what they're facing. So Kansas City, as the season goes on, will they reveal more? You know what I mean? That's my question with the Chiefs. Will they, spread the ball around, got it. Travis Kelce, got it. More Isaiah Pacheco. Is Isaiah Pacheco my sleeper of the week? Yeah. You know why? Because every week that I have, a what the heck flex, a sleeper of the week, am I putting Isaiah Pacheco in that? Yeah, pretty much. Put your chips on this Chiefs offense and Bloom. Well, you could be very, very happy this week on the road against Indianapolis.
Yeah, this game looks like another one where I don't want to say a funeral. And this again reminds you, by the way, if we're going to get ahead in part 2, the Jags play the Chargers. So it's not that difficult to see the Texans, if they can just beat the Bears, they'll be 1-1, and that'll be good enough to be in first place all alone in the South. And again, it would be an upset if the Colts don't fall to 0-3 in this one. And I know there's a lot of stats we're going to cite. I mean, we're in the 17 game era. We're in the 7 teams in the playoffs era. But still, nothing good's going to happen when your team starts 0-3. The Chiefs get a long week of rest. And boy, facing that Colts pass defense after facing the Chargers is going to feel a lot easier. A lot easier. So expect a good game for Patrick Mahomes. And he's going to go to Kelce. Shaquille Leonard will see if he can play. But even if he's back, I don't know if he's going to be himself right away. Indianapolis can stop the run. So Clyde Edwards-Helaire has to stay in your lineup at least as a what the heck flex type play. Maybe even McKinnon if we're going a little bit deeper. If we think that the Colts defense and their weakness keeps the Chiefs in pass mode. And then after that, I suppose this is a Juju Smith-Schuster game. I mean, this is the kind of game that if it's not a Juju Smith-Schuster game, now you're wondering if you're even going to start him. Now you're wondering if he's just by injury emergency material. Similarly with Marquez Valdes-Scantling, it's whether even to hold him on the roster on your fantasy team or really whether he's going to be in the week 4 waiver wire. Maybe he's the sleeper, true sleeper, fully asleep of the week, Cease. It's now or never for him in this game. This should be a game that sets up the deep shot to him because Indianapolis, this is a team that you could see it in some of the quotes from the players. They themselves are disgusted and they're not unwilling to show it. They're not unwilling to be transparent about how they're feeling internally, which is pretty rare. I think you usually keep those things in house, but they're going to challenge themselves. And this isn't their Super Bowl, Cease, but I think this is that true gut check game. Like, what are you made of? And well, I'm afraid we already know what Matt Ryan's made of.
Yeah, we know what that's made of. We've seen this movie before and it's not good. And Indianapolis, they're like, man, the hell, it's the curse of Andrew Luck.
Yeah.
This is what you do when you allow that to happen to that sort of superstar. This is the price that you have to pay. And well, sorry, Jonathan Taylor, fantasy GMs, because if you're the Chiefs, already, like, okay, single them up on the outside, cram everybody 9 in the box,
right?
Stop Taylor, and there you go. Now, if you're the Colts, you're in pass mode immediately, right? You're not going to be able to run it and play slow and use time of possession. That's a nice idea, but I don't think it works in practicality. So if they're in pass happy mode, I assume Michael Pittman will be back again. We're
Right.
recording Wednesday morning, just for everybody to know. Injury reports haven't been out yet, but like, okay, Pittman's back, good. But what else can they do in pass happy? You know, the Kylan Granson thing's not working. This other stuff's not working. Like, okay, they could do more Nyheim Hines.
Yeah.
I said him before you did, Bloom. But like, what else? What else you got?
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, Cease, because even when they have Michael Pittman, and he may not be 100% if they do have him, he didn't practice last week. I think the game plan is to control the clock. I think the game plan is to keep Patrick Mahomes on the sidelines. And I know they don't want to run. They don't want to have Taylor touching the ball 35 times every week like he did in week 1, but this might be a 35 touch game for him again. And then Nyheim Hines, I think he had like 3 targets on the first drive and barely played for the rest of the game. Huh? What? So we just get to keep sucked back into this. And there's some 40 slip there. Sucked back into this universe where Nyheim Hines is going to be underused, even though there's nobody else stepping up except for Ashton Dulin. And if Ashton Dulin is a play this week, it will be because Michael Pittman's out, or maybe because they're just going to give him more opportunity. If they're having to pass, you have to think in the second half, at least they'd have to. Dulin is at least a what the heck flex, and he may establish himself. He has back-to-back good weeks with or without Pittman on the field. But see, I have in this one, and again, what's the only thing that's going to keep backup quarterbacks off the field in the AFC South? It's that 6 wins might win this division. 7 wins, I think, will win this division. But otherwise, we're going to see Sam Ehlinger at some point, because I think you have another one of these situations, so it isn't just the fans that feel no confidence in Matt Ryan. I think the players probably feel no confidence in Matt Ryan at this point. So this is a gut check game for Matt Ryan. But I want to circle back to what you started with, Cease, which is, number one, the story has a happy ending. Andrew Luck is happy. Go look for an interview with him. He's so happy. I mean, he's so happy that other football players who have financial security probably should look at him and say, like, how am I doing? Is this my best life? Is this my best self? Because that's good for Andrew Luck. But I think you're right, Cease. And who's the player, like you've brought up, Joe Burrow, right? The player that we have to say, are you going to ruin him? Because he has to be protected from himself. I think you're absolutely right that they're stepping through these quarterbacks. I guess with the Panthers, it's the curse of bad ownership. And with the Colts, it's just not protecting Andrew Luck. And it's sad. And I really hope that we don't see that with Joe Burrow. And it would be neat if the Bengals were up next in the preview.
It would be. They're our last game we're going to do in our week 3 preview part 1 here on the Audible, brought to you by Sleeper. Bloom, but D. Smitty brings up something so interesting. We have to break the preview just to talk about this, because he says this is one of the few years the waivers have been so dry. Excuse me. And that's something that we've talked about.
Yeah.
It's critical to make preemptive moves now, because the waiver show, we spent more time ranting about other things than we did actually talking about waivers yesterday. Like, that's what it is this year.
Yeah, and I think that these are players like Justice Hill, or maybe even Marlon Mack or Jordan Mason. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we want to see how these offenses will change or otherwise being one step ahead. But I think that it stresses some of your late round drafting. And again, the waiver. You got your waiver wire show and my preview show. Look, I think, and I don't want to do this, but I think this year we're starting to see that maybe waivers are overrated. And I talked about this a little bit on the couch, that maybe we spend too much time on it. Not we'll put together a show for anything. Drop of a hat, we'll put together a show. Well, hey, it's 11 o'clock on a Thursday. Let's do a show. But I just mean how much time we spend thinking about our waiver pickups, rating them against each other, putting in all those waiver wire claims. This year, especially, it might be best just if it's snoozing during the waiver wire time, save your bucks. Maybe something better will come up. Curtis Samuel, Raheem Mostert, maybe Mike Gesicki was dropped. It has not been good.
Well, it tells me to start working trades more. And I think there's a balance, Bloom, because it used to be the draft is everything. And then it's like, oh, waivers is your weekly draft. Well, not if it's waivers like this. So that just means start working trades, start being more active and throw it out there. And you never know who's going to say yes.
Yeah.
So throw it out there. This should never happen. Throw it out there. And for the love of God, if you have one of those every owner votes on your trades,
Oh, no vetoes.
get out of those leagues.
Yeah.
Get out of those leagues.
Cecil, wise person told me you might as well ask, because if you don't ask, the answer is no anyway, right?
Exactly.
And I think that part of the reason that trade vetoes exist is because somebody will get one of those trades like, oh, if I would have known he would give up the player for that. But I think there's some good actionable advice that Cecil's given you folks is maybe take some of that time that you spend agonizing over your waiver wire and carpet bomb the rest of your league with trade offers. At the very least, we're really, I mean, we're still talking fantasy football and strategy, so this should be helpful for folks. But know this, that even if you, and this is why I say carpet bomb, you're like, if there's a player you want to deal, right, Derrick Henry, and just offer a trade that you would take to everybody in your league, even though they're all going to reject it because it starts the talks, and maybe 2 or 3 weeks later, you revisit it. The team that had Dak Prescott lost them, the team that had Trey Lance lost them. You might not get the trade done this week, but you're laying the groundwork for a trade next week, so they're going to think of you right away. So yeah, spend that time and spend it agonizing over your waiver wire pickups. Throw out some trade offers.
Jeffrey says the Bills will make you feel depressed. Well, Jeffrey, they're up next because this is the game, Bloom.
Ding, ding.
That's why we have Tyreek Hill as our cover athlete for Week 3 preview part 1 here on the Audible. It is Bills. It is Dolphins. Let's get it on.
Yeah.
Because this is going to be fantastic. And on the Bills side, obviously, you know, Josh Allen, Stephon Diggs, and everybody that you're going to consider there going up against Miami. The Miami side's more interesting, but the Bills side's chock full of fantasy goodness. This one's in Miami. And even if they can make them bleed, Bloom, like I'm picking the Bills in this game. And I love Mike McDaniel, but we all love the Bills. I'm picking the Bills in this game, but if Miami can make them bleed, I think it might be really good for Miami and their confidence. And I don't believe, you're going to win and a loss. Like, let's not have that talk. But, like, Buffalo's going to bring it. Is James Cook my sleeper of the week, Bloom? Brought to you by Sleeper? You're going to have to wait and find out. But let's talk some Bills football here, because this one, we should have done the whole show on this and then working trades.
Exactly.
That's more interesting than Raiders, Titans, and all that.
Yeah, this is that marquee. Like when they show the games coming up on Sunday, the big game in big letters. The rest of them are like, oh yeah, and there's some other games. This is it. This is that big game. And wow, schedule maker luck again. For this game to come this week is just beautiful, because these teams are going to learn about themselves. For Buffalo on the offensive side, now remember, we're going to see about Gabe Davis. I don't think he was really close to playing Monday. Is it going to be close to playing on Sunday? Are they going to maybe, on one hand, you're Buffalo, you're planning on playing in February. So you're going to make sure Gabe Davis's ankle feels as good as it possibly can feel with rest. But on the other hand, we have seen Stephon Diggs held in check by Xavier Howard in this Miami defense. He rarely has a high yards per catch against this Dolphins defense, and you can't expect the breakdowns. I mean, this team has some players that can get pressure up front. So I think it will be more like what we saw in week 1, where Josh Allen is getting the ball out quickly. And that could mean, and I'm not saying you're going to put in Isaiah McKenzie or put in Jamison Crowder. It could be Gabe Davis. If he's healthy enough to play, watch those practice reports. Again, I'm pessimistic, but maybe I can be turned around. It's a Dawson Knox game. This feels like a Dawson Knox game. Because if Diggs isn't getting much done downfield, you have the slot receivers. Dawson Knox got off to a hot start in week 2, but they just didn't need him to do more. Like you said, Cease, after James Cook got his bearings during garbage time against Tennessee, maybe you give him some more opportunities. Maybe Devin Singletary. Singletary has, and don't drop Devin Singletary and don't trade Devin Singletary, because the Cecil has advised us, as the weather gets colder, they're going to have to establish the run, and that's Devin Singletary. I think that's the guy that they know and has gotten it done at the end of the season, 2 out of the 3 years in his career. But I think the Dolphins defense is good enough. Now, they had problems with Lamar Jackson last week, but they're good enough that they may at least slow down this Buffalo defense, because they can make it. They have someone to counter neutralize Stephon Diggs, and Gabe Davis is hurt. So I think the bar for Miami, because remember, Miami was getting destroyed remember Baltimore had a defensive touchdown in that game last week. I mean, they were getting thoroughly beaten. This is, again, you emotionally let up. And I think that in this case, we might add, your defensive backs are banged up and tired. So that's another thing I think for Buffalo going into this game. How are they going to approach this defense? It may this offense, because it may be a preview. Do you tighten up against Miami now? Do you say, oh my God, that can't be us? We can't control a game for 3 quarters and blow it in the 4th quarter. So I'm really interested to see how Buffalo approaches this and then how Miami does. Because if you're Mike McDaniel, doesn't this just encourage you to be more aggressive? Maybe not wait until the 4th quarter. Maybe just keep defenses on their heels from the beginning. We know Buffalo can get a lot of pressure without blitzing, but we also know that Miami, whether you're blitzing or not blitzing, can make you pay for any mistake. Remember, this team's down Tre'Davious White, now Dane Jackson, so they got a lot of young cornerbacks. So you do something like hockey lines where you don't ask any of your defensive backs to play more than 70 or 80% of the snaps to keep them fresh for the 4th quarter. There's a lot of questions for this one, but if you're Miami, if you just hang with Buffalo, if you just make this game close and feel like the result is in question into the 4th quarter, that's a win, and that's something to build on.
Yeah, it is something to build on, and I'll have to check, Bloom. Not that it's probably a bad week to do that, and I should have done this before, but this is my brain catching up with reality. I would imagine, knowing Mike McDaniel, he's been working on this game plan since he got hired.
Yeah, maybe that was the job interview question. What would you do?
Yeah, how do you beat Buffalo?
Bills?
Right, right. So what can he put together? Tua's not going to throw 6 touchdowns again. But when you have Tyreek and Jalen, and it's like, just pick your poison, and then Gesicki getting utilized, because again, Tua was throwing that away, and Gesicki went and got it, and you can't really convince me otherwise. Like, you just put it up there, like, you put it up that high,
right?
Like,
see, that's like getting the cat out of the tree. The fire department needs a ladder for that most of the time.
Exactly. Gesicki just went and grabbed that tabby. There you go. So for me, I'm just interested in just how this looks. How does this look against Buffalo? Because if Buffalo goes into fast break mode, Miami can too. If Buffalo wants to slow it down, Miami can too. Like, it's anything you can do, I can do as well. I'm not going to say do better because it's Buffalo, right? But it's just like the fantasy football stuff aside, just as a game, thank God the Broncos aren't on during this game. And I don't even know if I'll watch Red Zone. Like, I'll just be dialed into what's happening in this contest. And on the Miami side, it's fascinating because they can keep up.
Yeah, Cecil, this is that great chess game of the NFL, because I think that you see it's the anticipation, right? I mean, there's a lot of these one-on-one sports, boxing, tennis, right? Where I say chess because the really good chess players are thinking 3 or 4 moves ahead. If you're focused on the move they're making and trying to understand the tactical reason for that, then you're probably falling into a trap because it's something 3 or 4 moves ahead. But we don't usually see NFL coaches adjust like that. I think we've seen Bill Belichick do that week to week on the defensive side of the ball, right? There was a really good quote. I want to go back to something. This game deserves a lot of talk because it is the marquee game, and these are the very compelling teams. We should spend easily as much time as we spend talking about all 4 of the AFC South teams combined, right? Byron Leftwich, who's going to be a really good NFL head coach, said, "I'm not worried about being balanced. I want to be multiple. I want to be able to unveil."
Wait, say that again. I'm writing that down.
I don't
my yellow notepad.
Yeah, I don't know exactly how he put it. I'm paraphrasing, but he said, "I don't care about being balanced. I care about being multiple." And what that means is there's different modes the offense can assume to attack different defenses that have different weaknesses or different strengths to avoid their strength. And I really wonder how much Buffalo is going to concede to Miami. This is like what defenses were doing with Patrick Mahomes, where they were playing too high and conceding the running game, conceding that, giving Mahomes that this is what the defense gives you: short, patient, deliberate drives. Is Buffalo going to take that approach? Mike McDaniel's the first coach I think sees, because remember, it took Kansas City, it took Andy Reid a little while to catch up. It took Patrick Mahomes a little while to catch up, but they did catch up. Is Mike McDaniel the coach who's going to anticipate that and have a game plan? Maybe Raheem Mostert right out of the box. I think Raheem Mostert is someone I would be aggressive if you haven't done your waiver wire pickups yet. This could be a Raheem Mostert game, because if your defense is playing back to take away Hill and Waddle downfield in the deep pass, then it would just make sense to run Mostert? And doesn't it also make sense to have longer drives to keep Josh Allen on the sidelines? Mike Gesicki is a really good player to bring up here because, again, if defenses are following Hill and Waddle, then Gesicki's going to run free in the middle of the field. I do think, and this is kind of like Philadelphia too, and I was saying this in the offseason, see, it's a short list of coaches that we say they are rational, right? We can assume they're going to be rational. We can assume that if we watch the games and we see something, they're seeing it too, and they're going to adjust. Nick Sirianni's number one on that list. Number one right now. Mike McDaniel might be 1A. So that's going to be something I'm watching here. Not just the fantasy stats. And remember, Buffalo's secondary is thin too. So, and Buffalo knows their own weaknesses. Buffalo knows, again, like I'm wondering, do you do something unorthodox where you're playing 6 defensive backs all like 65% of the time in this one? Because they saw what happened. And I think it's very reasonable to think that from an NFL perspective, one of the things that we don't factor in, but that teams do, is the team that's on the field in the fourth quarter is different than the team that's on the field in the first quarter, right? It's kind of like the opposite of the scripting the first 15 plays on offense. The offenses can look so efficient and good in the first 15 plays. And then what? Well, defenses, when you're full of intensity in first quarter, you can knock everyone around and blow everything up. But by the fourth quarter, might not be so easy. And I just think there's so much that's fascinating to this game, Cease, because I feel like Mike McDaniel is approaching the game the way we would, or the way that somebody who's not wedded to the idea. Detroit's another team, by the way, that I think is going to fit into this. Ben Johnson, a rational coach.
Yes.
I think it was Ted Nguyen, who does outstanding work all the time for the Athletic, detailing that I think the first 5 Detroit running plays were 5 different concepts. And I asked Ted, like, why don't more teams do that? Well, you specialize in one thing. It takes a long time to install that. Maybe not, though. I mean, these guys have all played football for a long time.
Right.
It's the language. It's not the actual design of stuff. It's the language and what you call it. That's what's difficult to learn. And knowing Mike since he's been a teenager, Mike McDaniel, he's exactly one of us.
Yeah.
He's exactly. I'm sure Mike has, a Public Enemy t-shirt in his closet. I'm sure Mike has, a Xbox One X, not the One S, like I have, but the One X. Like, I'm sure, like, he's one of us. Yeah. And this is what we see with Miami. Yeah. And it's fascinating because you talk about the fourth quarter, Bloom. Imagine if they're neck and neck with Buffalo. How are you, Buffalo, when you're trying to mask your own weaknesses? And you do that with your offense. Your offense is so scary. It's like, oh, my God, we're about Josh Allen over here. But if you stay with them and you're down by 3 in the fourth quarter, how is Buffalo responding to that? This is almost the Derrick Henry getting decleated thing. Does Buffalo all of a sudden, like, oh, my God, they kind of figured that out.
Well, they tighten up.
They don't strike us where we're weak, because we know where we're weak.
Yeah.
Mike McDaniel should know that. So it could be a blowout. Bills could win it, 35-10 or whatever. I don't think so, though. And I don't think the Dolphins will win. But again, how does Buffalo respond to this sort of challenge? This will be different than what Buffalo has normally faced.
Yeah, and maybe some flashbacks to the fourth quarter and overtime against the Chiefs, where you say, no matter what we do, they're going to have an answer. Oh, by the way, Tyreek Hill. That was the problem, right? That was a hot problem on the 13 seconds. They were afraid of Tyreek Hill. So we already know that this team might be able to be manipulated by their fear.
Yeah, and Tyreek Hill, he's very fearful of Tyreek and what he can do on the football field. Now, I want to go to our man Brian Martinez here in the chat room, because he says Lions winning the North.
I'm here for this. I'm here for it.
I'm totally here, but you totally had it. Totally redeemed themselves. No, this is awesome, because it is Lions and it's Vikings up next. And just, okay, Kevin O'Connell. I really like Kevin O'Connell. Notice how I'm focused on Minnesota side, but like, how do you respond after you get depants like that publicly? The Lions, again, this is how you change a culture. It's not just the talk. It's not just the toughness, old school, right? How many old school coaches suck? Vic Fangio every day. There you go, Jason. Hey. Double bong grip there, buddy. But like, you can't just talk about it. You have to be about it. And then you have to find those that are willing to go along with you and to buy in.
Yeah.
I'll ask you one thing simply, and we'll break down the fantasy side of the Lions, Bloom. But do Lions players buy in with Dan Campbell?
Yeah.
We know that answer. So
Yeah,
the
we do.
Lions and Vikings is up next. And the Lions side, we'll be watching DeAndre Swift's participation in practice. We'll see what's happening there. We got Jameson Williams coming in the horizon. Bloom. Like, look at what's happening with Detroit. It's fantastic.
And you know the defense is going to get better. This game, remember, Green Bay goes down to Tampa Bay this week. So there's a possibility that we're looking at Green Bay as a 1-2 team. I would probably pick Green Bay in that game. That's in part 2 of the preview. But the team that wins this game has a reasonable chance of being in first place by themselves, and certainly will be at least tied for first place. And we're going to talk about Minnesota. We're going to talk about how teams respond. But I don't think we ever even have to include that analysis with the Lions because, like you said, Dan Campbell has their attention. And it's love, Cease. It's love. We talk about fear with the Bills. What's the natural enemy of fear? Love.
What always wins in the end?
Yeah.
What can you never stamp out, no matter how hard you
indestructible.
try? It's love.
It's indestructible, baby. And that's what the glue of this team. That's the glue of this team. You can feel it. This is going to be fun, and DeAndre Swift should be healthier. But again, volume, he doesn't care. Give him 7 touches. He's going to be a running back 1. Jamal Williams, what the heck, flex? Because you're facing a Vikings defense that felt really, really good. What they did, frustrating Aaron Rodgers, and I think that they were able to exploit a matchup against backup tackles with their outside linebackers getting pressured. Danielle Hunter and Zadarius Smith. They have really good tackles for the Lions. The Lions are playing backup. Did you even notice? That's the thing, right? 5 different concepts on the first 5 running plays. They had 3 backups in on the interior offensive line. Trust your players. Trust your players. Why are you even deploying your team if you don't trust your players? Why even show up and try if you don't trust your players? And the Lions trust their players. They trust Amon-Ra St. Brown and Chark, Reynolds. These guys are both what the heck flexes. They're splitting that role that'll eventually be Jameson Williams. Really, the big question here for fantasy is TJ Hawkinson going to get going? He doesn't look that good. He looks stiff, looks kind of unathletic, doesn't look like a player that would be in a top 10 pick. So hopefully for him, this is a game that can get him going. We saw Dallas Goedert have a pretty good game. Everybody had a pretty good game against Minnesota on Monday night. And yeah, that Minnesota team sees they're dragging themselves back home, beat up, humiliated. And the Lions, they smell that. They smell that blood in the water. This is a dream situation for them to get to put a division rival in their place. Now, Minnesota, I think this is the first test for Kevin O'Connell. Again, emotional game. First and foremost, it's an emotional game. I think that's much more responsible for the wild week-to-week swings or swings within a game than we realize. And Kevin O'Connell's got to get his guys ready for this one because the Lions are not going to let up.
Not going to let up. And how does Kevin O'Connell respond to this one? And what else you got? I'd say, or especially early on in a coaching career, forgetting balance and being multiple, Bloom. We're going to be quoting that a lot.
Yeah.
And it does make my yellow sticker wall of fame. I should show people everything. Writing is making choices.
Yeah.
Did you know writing is rewriting too, Bloom?
Always.
Well,
we're all the source material. I mean, everything's source material, right?
Oh, get this one. This is great. What do they want? Why can't they get it? What do they do about it? That's essentially every story in a nutshell.
It's Buddhism. It's just desires.
Right. And then you write all characters assuming or answering these questions. So what do they want? Why can't they get it? What do they do about it? That sums up the Minnesota Vikings. What do they want? Win. I sound like a cheer. Why can't we get it? Kirk Cousins. What do they do about it? Nothing. Okay.
Yeah.
That's the story of the Minnesota Vikings. Let's see what they got.
See, or you're leading a labor strike. I think that's the, what do we want? Sick leave. When do we want it? Now. So Cousins, another Monday Night Football collapse. And Cousins is an odd bird. There are other quarterbacks that I might say, oh, this could undermine their confidence. Cousins, I'm not as sure about. And look, this is the Lions defense. So if it does look like Cousins is still discombobulated out there, now the Lions defense is going to get better, but it's an undermanned defense. You should see the Vikings have some success here. And this is a game where you should see a bounce back for Dalvin Cook. You should see a bounce back for Justin Jefferson. I think this is a game, if you're putting together DFS lineups, you want to have a lot of chips on this game in your lineup. The biggest question for fantasy is we saw Irv Smith get a lot of targets. And if he had just caught that deep ball, he probably would have gone to the house, would have had the best week of any tight end. If he caught that ball season, we would have been 20, 40%, 25, 50%. Wow. Now that Irv Smith is healthy, even though there wasn't a lot of buzz about him and he missed the offensive install because of his thumb injury, well, he's the guy I think they figured out the defenses are going to ignore. Or is this KJ Osborne? See, so I think we might be queuing the Chuck D on KJ Osborne. If this isn't a good game for him, we did see some signs of life from Adam Thielen. But yeah, I think we can look at, because Minnesota beat Green Bay, because Detroit is a resurgent team, that NFC North is up for grabs. And this is how you assert that it's mine, is winning a game like this. So during the commercials in Buffalo, Miami, we'll switch over to this one.
No, we will switch over to this one and kind of avoid our next one because, well, Bloom, it's Baltimore and the Patriots. It's not tremendously exciting, although we're still trying to figure out if J.K. Dobbins is going to play. I think that's really the reality of the situation with what you're waiting on with the Ravens is like, are they going to get someone to run the ball? Where's Gus Edwards at? Right.
Mhm.
Because it's not working any other way. So again, we're recording Wednesday morning. We're watching the practice status of J.K. Dobbins, although last week it was good. And then let's say this, Bloom. Little birdies. I always love when people say little birdies because it mainly means PR people. I rather say Lassie barks because the PR people tell you anything, tell you the sky's purple. Speaking of the Ravens, but let's say Lassie bark. The training staff in Baltimore, maybe the Chargers training staff looks down on them. Just put it together, and if you know, you know. But there's enough buzz out there to be like, oh, if you're a Baltimore player and you're hurt, they're not going to treat you the right way. They're not going to know how to get you back the right way. And yeah, that's something that perhaps, Bloom, I'm suggesting this, allegedly, players talk about.
Yeah, and I think from the backfield standpoint, there's twofold. And Ronnie Stanley, by the way, another player hasn't been fully healthy for a while. Very important player. I think you look at the Ravens and Lamar Jackson, bless his heart, pay the man. And you say pay the man because he's not going to hold up if the whole offense is on him again. Remember what happened last year? He's not going to hold up. He's not going to hold up. We talk about Ritter and Willis and Pickett. Maybe it's Tyler Huntley. It's somebody in your super flex leagues that's a preemptive pickup with the thin waiver wire because he's just not. And I don't want to wish anything on Lamar. I love Lamar Jackson. I want to see Lamar Jackson eventually holding up the Lombardi Trophy. Truly a fierce competitor and truly a player, I think, Cease, that has had to overcome a lot more than people realize, a lot more than people will ever understand. Not just hearing people say things, you should be a wide receiver or whatever, but understanding that there are people out there rooting for your failure or otherwise that want you to fail to prove something that they said is true.
Yes.
Right? You can't just run. You have to be able to sit back there. He can sit there and break down defenses. Okay? This is one of the things I think you saw a lot of people saying, and I'll say it on the show. No, the league hasn't figured him out. And New England, Bill Belichick, it's going to be an interesting test here to see if Belichick can make him uncomfortable. It is going to ride on Lamar's arm again. If it's the running game that's going, it's Justice Hill. And maybe that's one of the success stories from the Ravens training staff. Let's look up and see if Justice Hill just went with his own doctor or something like that, right? He's all the way back from his Achilles. So that's Hill, that's Akers, that's Robinson. Again, revising our conventional wisdom about can running backs get all the way back. You have Rashad Bateman. You probably got to play him because when it's good for Rashad Bateman, it's really good. You saw him run away from Xavier Howard for the long touchdown. It's 2 straight weeks. He had a long touchdown. We'll see if Devin Duvernay's over his concussion in this one. And then you have Mark Andrews. You know Mark Andrews is going to play a big role in this game. And maybe if Bill Belichick, what's Belichick going to do? He's going to probably try to take away Mark Andrews, right? I mean, it's just you have to throw to somebody other than Mark Andrews.
Right.
So maybe Isaiah Likely, a deep sleeper of the week.
I like that.
See, so we got to look at this New England defense. And remember, after all that talk about Miami, speaking of Baltimore, we're saying, wow, what do you do when you have to face an offense that can put you in these compromising positions? New England, it was a 4th down on 7, really was the one lapse for New England. And that's in some ways forgivable because you're thinking you're throwing for the sticks in a 4th down and 7. And instead, it was Jalen Waddle splitting the defense and going to the house. So maybe we need to put a little more respect on what New England's defense did in week 1, even though they don't have JC Jackson anymore. We'll see what they can do against Lamar Jackson.
Well, we know in Denver we have the great memories of this one's for John. I want Lamar Jackson to hoist the Lombardi Trophy, and I can't believe I said that because I hate the Ravens. But I want Lamar to hoist it and be like, "This one's for Bill Polian."
Yeah,
You know, like, hey, and there's some of that there, but the intent of someone. And by the way, on the trainers thing, my final note on this: don't do too much addition here, Bloom, or I might get in trouble. Why do trainers never get fired? Because they know all the dirt.
Oh, they know all of it.
They know everything. Single thing.
There's dirt. There's a lot of dirt.
There's a ton
you
of
could
dirt.
do the laundry 17 times and it's still going to be dirty.
Well, what is it? On the Anthrax album, is it Persistent of Time? Skeletons in the Closet? Mm-hmm. Any skeletons and all your other sins? Any skeletons hiding in the closet? Yeah, if you're an NFL trainer, you've got job security.
Yeah,
because you know the codes.
Yeah, and if there's an NFL player, you should probably have a doctor that you trust that doesn't work for a team.
Yes, very much so. New England Patriots side of things, Bloom, and I'm already bored. So please get through it so we can get to our last game.
Well, Mac Jones to Myers and Aguilar, this secondary is weary. And how do they respond? I think Baltimore, this team has been through enough that they will respond. Is it a Ramondre Stevenson show? We're going to watch Damian Harris and the knee reports. It could even be a multi-week injury. It's the Patriots, so we haven't heard anything yet. With the tight ends, Hunter Henry, Johnny Smith, they've been on the field more. Maybe this is a week that they unveil a game plan here, again, with the weary secondary after everything they had to endure. And see, New England is a team that maybe they can't hang with Buffalo and Miami, but put them in the AFC North. If they beat the Steelers and then they beat the Ravens, maybe they could hang there. AFC North, not exactly a banner week season for them so far.
Yeah. Brian's like, Cecil's a Knicks fan? Yeah, he's a big
Walt Frazier. That's some sartorial splendor there.
Oh, Willis Reed, all right? Yeah. Come back for a broken stick. And no, I wasn't alive when that happened. The Knicks haven't won a title in my lifetime, and I'm 50.
Right. Anthony Mason. Was that close?
Yeah, that close. Patrick Ewing can't tip in.
John
Starks missing 700 3-pointers. Like
he's gonna hit one of them one of these times.
Yeah, but man, and I remember when my son was born, when Liam was a baby in the hospital. So like born. They were in the finals, and my man Larry Johnson was out there. And just a quick Larry Johnson story, Bloom. Yeah. I remember sitting around going to LCCC when they had a basketball program, and yes, a community college with a basketball program. So the year I got there, anticipating playing basketball for LCCC, they canceled their basketball program. But there was some players that came from across the country. One player's name was Marvin Thompson. So Marvin would sit around. We had suites, and Chris might remember this. Chris is in the chat room. Like Marvin, and this was the year before Chris, so you might not have been there because I was like hanging around with Devin and just like living in the dorms, even though I wasn't going to school there. Like Marvin Thompson would sit around and like smoke weed and just be like, boy, let me tell you stories about Larry Johnson, because he was from Dallas. So Larry would go around to the city parks in Dallas and just say, who's the best one here? And he'd go and he'd beat him. And then he'd get in his car and he'd drive to another city park, and he'd go to that park where they're playing basketball and say, who's the best here? And he'd go beat him. And like, that was his tradition. So I just remember those stories of Marvin sitting around in Charlotte's Hornets gear at the time, because LJ was playing for the Hornets then. But yeah, when Larry Johnson went to the Knicks, I was like, okay, I love LJ. I love the Knicks, and well, the Knicks suck. And of course, Chris is in the chat room. Is like, Golden Eagles represent. I do have a Golden Eagles shirt. I should wear that sometime.
Yeah.
Like, and then I think they brought the basketball program back, but that was like 20 years ago.
See, podcast idea number 814.
Yes.
We just sit around and reminisce about stuff we watched, sports we watched on TV when we were kids.
Yeah, we saw some great. I mean, the fact that most kids know Michael Jordan from the Crying Jordan meme, which I hate. Like, there's a few things I hate with the
only
everything in my bones. Yeah, truly hate. There are things that I truly do hate. One of those is crying Jordan meme. Like,
Yeah.
the man was so good. I know it's funny, but like the man was so good, and so many people just don't know. Just don't know, don't remember. Anyway, we're getting off track because we got to get on track to talk about our final game. Wait. We did Patriots? Yeah, we did Patriots.
Yep.
Okay. Final game. And this one is interesting as well
Yeah.
because Bengals, you gotta do something. What's the meme? Speaking of memes, the guy with the stick that's like poking at the thing, like, do something. Please do something. Like, dude, Bengals, come on. What are you doing? Got to get Joe Mixon going.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
got to get Joe Burrow better protected, and that comes from design. Plenty of players. How bad were Peyton Manning's offensive lines? Like, seriously. And I'm not even talking about Denver with a lot of my friends that are on the offensive line, so I'll be careful what I say. But how many bad offensive lines did Peyton Manning had in front of him? Plenty. And what did he do? Just got rid of the ball. They designed everything. He knew where to go. Burrow's smart enough to do that. There's no question that Joe Burrow could do that. We'll start having him do that, or else he's going to get crushed and he's going to turn into Andrew Luck. And somewhere he'll be smiling, smoking a cigar with a beard, looks like he's a Civil War general like Andrew Luck, and he'll be retired. Hopefully he gets his bag, because that's what we're talking about, Bloom. We're talking about a bag of all bags, the greatest bag of all time. Joe Burrow could get that, and he better before his career's over with the way that these guys can't block for him.
And some of it's on Burrow. Look, I think it was Joe Goodberry who's just automatic follow. The pressure rates were middle of the road, but Burrow taking sacks bottom of the league. So some of it's Burrow. I mean, sometimes you have to say die, right? Never say die can lead to your death in a way that just living to fight another day, right? These cliches. But the Bengals are staring at 0-3 right now. And again, unless they tie one team out of the Steelers, and Browns could be 2-1, and the Ravens should be 2-0 and could easily go to 3-0. And it's the AFC. See, so what do we talk about all offseason? Very little margin of error if you're going to make the playoffs in the AFC, unless you're in the AFC South. Then the margin of error is like as wide as the Pacific Ocean. So, hey, you can't afford to lose this, and you're coming in against a Jets team that has magical thinking right now, and the Jets can get some pressure up front. So I think it is a game where we see a lot of Joe Mixon. Even if it's Joe Mixon for 3 yards a carry, those are plays that Joe Burrow's not getting hit, right? And I think that, Burrow to Chase, Burrow to Higgins, of course, to Tyler Boyd, to Hayden Hurst, we're not even thinking about until this offense gets going. And remember, they went through this last year. Burrow was getting hit a lot early. Then they regulated things with Mixon. Then by the end of the year, facing tired defenses like Baltimore's, they were putting up numbers, big time numbers. So back to basics for this team. And Jets, I think, have that emotional rush of doing the improbable, and it can change you. And we'll see if they can put the Bengals to 0-3 and say, hey, don't forget about us. Taking receipts, making receipts, holding on to them. Robert Salace's, are we on that list?
Yeah. No, I'm on Robert's good side. I hope so. So the Jets side of things. All right, Joe Flacco. Well, let's see what you could do. Flacco, you win a game like this, Flacco can just start the rest of the year.
Well, that's the thing, right? It's about his job at this point.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's already proven they're going to spread the ball around. They're going to get in spots where he can fill the air with footballs. And whatever that click is at the end of the game, it's like, hey, we're down by 14. Click. Can you do what you did earlier, please? As Martin Lawrence would say, like, yeah, can you do that and then actually do it earlier? That'll be the question for the Jets here. And then it becomes more Breece Hall, Michael Carter as receiver out of the backfield. Like, you've got options. You've got plenty of options. And with Joe Flacco, he's going to spread around and hit guys. And if you want to have a career resurgence, Joe, go win a game like this against an opponent that you know.
Yeah, this is one where you got to play Garrett Wilson, Elijah Moore's a what the heck flex, Tyler Conklin, a desperation tight end. Maybe there's more Breece Hall after he got a lot of yards after contact last week and scored that touchdown. So he's a what the heck flex, and we're watching for his role to grow. But consider this: if the Bengals lose this game, if the Bengals lose this game, they will have started 0-3 against Mitchell Trubisky, Cooper Rush, and Joe Flacco.
There you go.
You let it sink in.
Yeah, that's all you got to say. That's all you've got to say. All right, it is the Audible. It's Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom, and it is time. I know you've been waiting for it. We've been waiting for it. We've teased it. How many have we talked about? Who will it actually be? And it is time for our ever popular Sleeper of the Week.
It's time for the Sleeper of the Week, powered by Sleeper.
I like the audio on that. It's much less jarring than our intro audio. Anyway, Sleeper of the Week, Bloom. Let's talk about it, because for me, actually, it could be Zamir White. It honestly could be. I want to see what the Raiders can do, and they need to try something else. And I know we talked about Josh Jacobs earlier, but Zamir White could be that guy. I mentioned Isaiah Pacheco as my sleeper week. These are just the early games, just the games we've covered in this show. But Bloom, it's week 3. You need some punch. Who is your sleeper of the week?
Yeah, I think this is the KJ Osborne game. I think this is the game, assuming Kirk Cousins gets righted, it is the Detroit Lions defense, and this is going to be one of the highest scoring games of the week. It's the game that I would absolutely be looking for. And Marcus Valdes-Scantling, again, these are the guys that are now or never. Maybe it's not the sleeper of the week so much the please do something so I don't have to drop you player of the week.
Ha. There you go. That is a wrap for the week 3 preview. Part 1. We'll be back with part 2 tomorrow morning. He is Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on Twitter at Sigmund Bloom. You follow me at Cecil Lammey. The show is at the Audible. We appreciate all of you for watching, with over, 2 million views, right? We just passed that about a week ago. So thank you for helping grow our YouTube channel. It is youtube.com/footballguys, and do all those YouTube things, like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell. And if you've commented in the chat room, please comment below the video. And actually, also, there's so many things with the YouTube algorithm that we figured out. One, you have to like it immediately, like it faster, like it as soon as you get here, because that tells the algorithm to put it in front of more people. Like, hey, people like that, just started, and so many people like this. Okay, good. Help us out there. The other thing that we figured out is, like, okay, you got to comment below, not just in the chat room. Thank you, chat room, though, for your participation. Comment below. That helps the YouTube algorithm. And finally, Bloom, watch all the way to the end. You watch it all the way to the end, and YouTube's like, they just can't get enough. They watch it all the way to the end. So hopefully you haven't clicked off by now. Anyway, he's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. Thanks for watching, everyone. We are the Audible. Stay tuned. And as always, stay frosty.